You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you for joining me here today on our first house call of the weekend. We're about to get into our community's questions. Really looking forward to being able to share hopefully some insight into some health issues or some weight loss or, maybe health practitioner-based advice along the way today. As always, it probably just takes about 3 weeks or so, maybe a little bit longer now as we're starting to get more and more questions coming in, but we will absolutely get to your questions. Really excited today. I want to make sure I get in as many as possible. It's actually Friday where I'm recording this before my weekend and yours as well. And I'm trying to get them all in between an appointment that I had a nice little break here today. So looking forward to this, and let's get right into the show. So first question's from Anonymous. And they're writing in, "Hi, Dr. Cabral. I'm a longtime listener and have used some of your lab tests and products. I truly appreciate everything you do. My question for you is about my recent food sensitivity tests. Out of the 3 levels of reactivity, high, moderate, and mild, I was moderately high for dairy and moderate for 22 other foods such as nuts, gluten, green beans, peas, soybeans, coconut, eggs. This seems like a lot of foods to have a food sensitivity to, so I'm wondering if I should do your SIBO Candida protocol a second time. Did it earlier this year. In case I have SIBO Candida issues again, or if I just try to omit these foods for a while and give my body a rest. As always, appreciate your insights you can share on how to best move forward." Okay, so here's what I would do. I would do the SIBO protocol, but what I would do is I would make sure you're doing 90 days, definitely 90 days, so 3 months. It's not that bad because all it is 2 products, super simple, of the gut rebuilding protocol. Because you could have easily wiped out your Candida and bacterial overgrowth. Not a bad idea to do it just to make sure it is gone, but end it with taking the daily probiotic support. You can just do 2 capsules every day upon waking, or you can do 1 upon waking, 1 before bed, and you'll use something called healthy gut support. This is called our gut rebuilding protocol. Because even after, so a lot of times this is what happens. People remove the Candida, they remove the bacteria, but what happens is they never seal up the gut wall appropriately. And the gut rebuilding protocol does that. It does that with the specific dairy-free probiotic, and it does that with the healthy gut support, which is clinically proven to do that as well by including things such as zinc and glutamine and aloe vera. It's an amazing product. I still use it myself. I consider my gut to be healthy now. I do the lab test to back that up, for myself personally so that I know that, but also at least 2 bottles a year, at least, probably more like 3 to 4, I'm doing the healthy gut support to keep that gut wall nice and strong. Plus, glutamine is just good overall to rebuild cells, especially good for people who are stressed or they work out a lot because it helps replenish the glutamine levels that your body really does need. So that's exactly what I would do. And then do your best to really eliminate those food sensitivities as much as possible. Meaning that, I know it's a lot of foods, it's 22, which really does show you that there's still a lot of leaky gut or intestinal permeability. That's what that means. But really what I would look to do is eliminate those as much as you can, and then maybe just have them each 1 time a week, at most twice a week, so that you're not really, the onslaught's not continuing on. The only way to really clear that up, though, is to seal up that gut wall. Hopefully that helps. Zoe's up next. Zoe's asking, "Hi, Dr. Cabral. Another question for you to kindly answer. I wondered if you have any thoughts how to manage a combination of rosacea and Raynauds, as they appear to me to be equal and opposites, i.e. what is good for Raynauds, like saunas, keeping warm, spices, is bad for rosacea. Thanks, as always, Zoe." Zoe, you're absolutely correct, and I know that you've done your research, which is great. Just keep in mind, they're not as opposite as you would think. They're opposite from a superficial-based treatment standpoint, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all. What I mean is that if we look at the underlying root cause, they pretty much have the same underlying root issues, which means typically it is some type of neurological-based stress that's causing the immune system to push into one direction, which is typically the higher cortisol, higher adrenaline-based output. So when we're looking at underlying root cause, while the rosacea can definitely be attributed to yeast and Candida as well, Now, if that's an issue, well, then that turns on the immune system. So that could turn on the nervous system to a higher degree. My highest recommendation is to run an organic acids test and then either do the hair tissue mineral analysis or the adrenal hormone panel. You can run all three, of course. That would help out tremendously. Now, you can still do the saunas for both. I think that would be completely fine. You might not want to just go in a very, very hot sauna, meaning like the 180, 200 degree finish-based saunas. You might want to do more like an infrared sauna. That would be fine. And yes, spices, those types of things can flare up the rosacea, but be good for the Raynauds. But the problem is that, again, like these are all good things to do, but we want to get at a deeper underlying root cause level. That's absolutely what I would look at. So again, rosacea, I've talked about that before. Raynauds, I've definitely talked about that before. Simply go to stevencabral.com/podcast, type in rosacea or type in the Raynauds, and you'll find in-depth shows on both of those. I actually answered them multiple times on house calls before, so I can give you specific recommendations for each. The rosacea, though, I'm absolutely looking at gut-based issues. Hands down, I'm looking at Candida, yeast, easily looking at that. And then also for the Raynauds as well, as we want to find out what type of sympathetic nervous system dominance or high blood pressure or stress or thyroid, what's going on that's not allowing that particular type of circulation. So that is what we see in my practice. That is how we help people with those specific things. Jen Marie is up next. Jen Marie is asking, hi, Dr. Cabral. I'm trying to figure out my body type and what diet works best for my body. I'm 5'6", weigh about 135 pounds. My shoulders are as wide as my hips. Smaller breast, long neck, and if I put my middle finger and thumb around my wrist, my thumb overlaps my middle finger. Can you tell me what body type this is and recommend what diet I can benefit from the best? I am training for a marathon as well, so I want to feel and look my best. Thank you so much for your advice, Jen Marie. All right, Jen Marie, I'm going to give you a place to start, but here's the thing. I can't give you a diet plan just based on this because your diet takes into account your overall lifestyle. It takes into account whether you're trying to lose weight, gain weight, what type of activity you're used to right now. So much goes into it. However, I will help you figure that out for yourself. So if you can overlap your middle finger and your thumb on your wrist, it is typically more of the Vata-based skeletal, system, body. But also that doesn't necessarily, it's the same for the lower body. There are other factors that go into that. That is one. So that's first. Again, smaller breasts, well, that can be a hormone disruption or dysfunction, lowered hormones, and even the endomorph body type, which would typically have larger breasts, but that's not the case usually for the Vata type. So if you have a longer neck, again, longer neck would be Vata. So it certainly sounds like you're more of the Vata body type. And so I would lean that way for you, which means that you're going to benefit then from a little bit more carbohydrates in your body and making sure that your body doesn't become too catabolic. So while you're training for this marathon, I would want to really be cognizant that you'll need some carbs before your runs, and you'll certainly need some after your runs to meet your energy-based demands. Because keep in mind, the Vata body type does much, much better with carbohydrates in their diet. They rarely run on glucose, whereas the endomorphic body type, now again, if you're training for a marathon, which is aerobic-based, you can get away if you're an endomorph with, a moderate to low carb diet. Absolutely, because it's an aerobic-based activity and you can oxidize body fat, in that way. So it just doesn't sound like you're that type of person, right? It certainly doesn't sound like you're the mesomorph if you don't have those broad shoulders. But at the same time, that's the best I can do over a podcast. I do hope that helps. One thing I would say as well, if you want a little bit more in depth, you could really run just a simple hair tissue mineral analysis. And that would actually let you look at your absorption of minerals for your body, as well as your autonomic nervous system based stress by looking at your electrolytes. So if you want to run one lab, I would lean you towards that hair tissue mineral analysis. It's the least expensive one you can run. And you would also get my personal recommendations and a chat with my health coach. Okay. Jeanette is up next. Jeanette is writing in, hello, Dr. Cabral. Over the past month, I've been feeling increasingly fatigued, have a lot of headaches, neck pain, and overall weakness. I had blood work done and found that I'm low in iron, but I have been taking it for a while now. With little improvement, I try to drink coffee to get me alert, to boost, but it doesn't help much. As much as I love coffee, it doesn't love me. It never feels that I break out after drinking it for more than a week. Why is this? And what could all these symptoms be a sign of? Is there a test to run to determine what is going on? Many thanks, Jeanette. All right, Jeanette, let's make sure that we get you some help here. Okay, headaches, neck pain, overall weakness. All right, so we're looking at the head and neck. We always have to kind of look at this from a detective-based standpoint. All right, so we have head and neck-based tension and pain. All right, so this can be from a biomechanical-based deviation, as we call it, just meaning that something's out of alignment. I guess that's an easier way to say it, right? Instead of saying deviation, out of alignment. That means that maybe from staring at a computer screen, maybe you're the Vata body type and you're just leaning too far forward. And your trapezius muscles and your rhomboids and your posterior deltoids and all the muscles in the back of the shoulders and neck, levator scapulae, SCM muscles, all those are not strong enough. Like they actually might need to get stronger through exercise. So that would help. Maybe it's too much leaning forward to a computer screen. So we should fix that. Headaches can also be from tension. It could be from food sensitivities, any type of inflammation. I mean, like it's histamines, you name it. You can get a headache from almost anything. Medications. I remember taking Claritin as a kid. I'd have a headache every single afternoon. Doctors couldn't figure it out why. I would do CAT scans on my head as like a 10-year-old. I would do MRIs. Can't figure it out. Went off Claritin, headaches went away. So you have to look at everything in your life. And that's why, we kind of always look at like, do that in-depth analysis on yourself or with the health practitioner to check that out. Overall weakness. While overall weakness could certainly be from low iron, there's no doubt about that. That's a possibility. It could be from lower levels of cortisol. It could be lower levels of vitamins, lower levels of minerals. Well, what would I run? Well, this is what I would run. I would run the thyroid plus adrenal plus hormone test. Okay, that's what I would run to look at all your hormones. And then it would most likely run your organic acids test and hair tissue mineral analysis because I want to look at your vitamins and gut function on the organic acids test and then in your mitochondrial function on the organic acids test. A lot of people forget that. I've run this test so many times, actually, I've memorized. Numbers 22 through 32 on the organic acids test look at mitochondrial function and your ability to produce energy. So it's amazing. It's 75 biomarkers. So again, we talk about it a lot for Candida and bacterial overgrowth in the gut, but it's so much more than that. It also looks at all your B vitamins. So I would look at that. And then your hair tissue mineral analysis is going to look at heavy metal toxicity, of course, but then also your mineral levels in your body, which is so very important. So that's what I would run. Those are definitely the three. If you could only run two, then I would say, what would I say? I would say I would actually run the organic acids test and hair tissue mineral analysis and put the thyroid adrenal hormone last because I'd still want to correct the underlying imbalances in your nutrition. Okay. Iron-based, I would really look at cofactors. I would look at getting enough magnesium, vitamin K. I would look at getting in your zinc. I would look at all the other things that are going to help with the overall absorption of iron. And I would certainly use a natural-based iron. You can find that on our store just by going to stephencabral.com/store. It's not our product. Again, my job is to recommend the best of the best. I recommend other people's products when it comes to iron because I have no plans of making my own iron-based product because there's enough good ones out there that there's no need for me to do that. All right. Kelly's up next. Kelly's writing in. Hello, Dr. Cabral. I love your podcast and listen every day. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that. I'm a 31-year-old female that has suffered from off again bulimia since I was 15. The root of my bulimia has always been my desire to lose weight. I'm very pear-shaped, medium size on the top, very large on the hips, thighs, and butt, and have always been overweight despite infinite futile attempts, which has led me back to bulimia. 2 questions. First question, can you speak to why some women have large bottom halves? I've been taking DIM, I've been taking calcium, I've been taking adrenal support herbs, extremely clean vegan diet, as well as progesterone cream on 14 to 28 of my cycle to try to balance out my hormones, almost non-existent progesterone, average to above average estradiol. Second question, what are the long-term effects of bulimia? I have always suspected that my bulimia habits have worked against me for my weight loss efforts due to an insulin roller coaster. Thank you for your time. Kelly, I'll tell you what, you have a lot of this figured out for yourself. And, I commend you for that. You've obviously seen some great practitioners. You've done a lot of homework. You're on the right path. We can still get you well, but you are on the right path. So keep up the great work. All right, bulimia can affect you. Yes, it can. And it affects your digestion. It affects, obviously, absorption. It affects stress on the body. It affects a lot. But that doesn't mean it can't be overcome and doesn't mean that it's not overcome all the time by women like yourself. And so what we want to do is deal with the you that you're currently at right now. All right. So we need to make sure that you're testing your fasting glucose levels in the morning. So use a simple glucometer. You don't have to do it every day, but maybe test your glucose for 1 week. Every morning when you wake up, what's the number? Is it under 95? Is it between like 75 and 95? If it is on your glucometer, well, then you're in great shape. And again, I'll put it in the show notes today, definitely, but I will link up the podcast of creating your own doctor's office. I always like that. So you have your own blood pressure monitor, your own oximeter, your own glucose, your own glucometer. You can check that out for yourself. All right. So I'm actually putting that in my notes right now. That's why I'm talking strangely. Create your own doctor's office. Okay. So we want to do that. We want to make sure that you're able to best regulate blood sugar. And the reason we have to regulate blood sugar is that it's going to be near impossible to really burn body fat at the rate that you want to without that. Plus, high blood sugar isn't just about burning body fat. It's also about utilizing the right fuel sources. So we want to burn body fat, yes, and the blood sugar's up. That's not going to work well. But also at the same time, increased blood sugar can also increase estrogen levels. So we certainly do not want that as well. So what I'm looking for is, okay, someone comes in and they're losing weight essentially on their top half, they say, but not their bottom half. Well, you're exactly right. Usually, well, I don't know if you mentioned this, but usually it does mean higher levels of estrogen, okay? Or at least imbalanced estrogen to progesterone. So that's very, very common in women as well, especially common with the endomorphic body type. So certainly we would put you on something like the Fatlocity diet plan or the 21-day Dr. Cabral detox to start, okay? Now, I highly recommend that. But then we want to start to transition off of that to increase your carbohydrates, at least at breakfast in your smoothie. You'll use the daily nutritional support. You'll do the greens powder as well. So for you, I highly recommend, well, if you don't have any gut issues, so of course, run an organic acid test if you want. But if not, use the Dr. Cabral Daily Protocol. Why am I recommending that? Well, you should do a greens powder to help balance estrogen levels as well. Okay, so greens powders, meaning like the ability to bind up negative hormones such as estrogen metabolites, has been well studied, well researched with the sulforaphane and sulfur-based ways to detox your body. So that's great from a natural-based perspective. The daily fruit and vegetable blend is 22 organic fruits and vegetables. The daily nutritional support, so you're getting the natural vitamins and minerals through that. Then you're getting the functional medicine vitamins and minerals through the daily nutritional support with the amino acids that your body needs. And then the probiotic, the daily probiotic support, is making sure that you replenish a lot of the good bacteria. So a lot of women don't have the proper bacteria. I've spoken about this before. You can look it up as well on a previous podcast on a Weight Loss Wednesday about the two bacteria that you need in your body to balance, which is called Firmicutes and Bacteroides, and the daily probiotic support will help with that as well. That's called the Dr. Cabral Daily Protocol, and I call it that because it's what I do every single morning. So I would certainly recommend that for yourself. 21-day detox, then the Dr. Cabral Daily Protocol, adding 1 cup of berries to your smoothie in the morning with all the other good stuff, probably doing a half a cup of starch with lunch, none at dinner, just good vegetables at every single meal, and then working your way back up. We want to load up your body with really good nutrition. And of course, do make sure that you're doing 4 to 5 days a week of exercise, not overdoing it, but you need to get that body into increasing, metabolism to a good metabolic rate. All right. That was a big answer. Hopefully that helps, Kelly. Katie's up next. Katie's going to be our last question today. She's writing in, I love all the tips and education you share. Thank you. My question is about what would cause areas of my body to fall asleep during a yoga flow. I know it typically has something to do with circulation, but I'm moving and breathing, yet seem to be only one in my class that constantly is battling or coming out of a pose to shake the tingly feeling out of my arms, legs, and back. I've asked a couple of teachers and mentioned it to other students, and they were confused, like they've never heard of that before. It happens a lot when I sleep too, but that seems more normal. Is this an indication of a problem that Dr. Google just doesn't know about? Okay, so a couple things. We can absolutely figure this out because this is quite common. One is impingement, okay? So if you have a mild herniation or bulging disc in your spine, that can actually impinge a nerve or nerves that can actually cause you to feel some of that tingling, almost like the arm is falling asleep or the legs are falling asleep. And it does sound like that because you're also getting it when you sleep. And, it's actually not normal to have that happen when you fall asleep. So it sounds like something's going on where you're getting this impingement. So first, when you sleep, I like people to just put one pillow under their head and then one pillow or something easy, light, small between the knees, usually a second pillow, a smaller pillow. And that will help take some of the pressure off of your spine and hips. So I would work on, without a doubt, just making sure that you've got your hips in proper alignment, that your hamstrings are lengthened, that your hip flexors are lengthened, that you see a chiropractor that just isn't there to adjust you, that doesn't see someone in like 5 seconds and just adjust and get you out of there. And that actually is looking at your spine, doing a spinal-based exam, make sure there's no herniations. I would look at doing things more probably like, I don't know if you wrote this here, like a cobra pose or an upward facing dog. That's going to help those discs get back into the proper alignment. I would do planks. I would do boats. I would just make sure we're getting those core muscles, the transverse abdominal muscles strengthened. I would stretch those hamstrings as much as you can. I would open up the hip flexors. I would roll the hips, foam roll the hips. So I would look at that in terms of impingement on the spine because that's what it sounds like. The other thing that it can be, though, is a lack in certain B vitamins. So very well documented as well. Not enough vitamin B12. This can happen. B6 as well because of neurological based issues. So on the flip side, though, it can actually happen if you have too much. Like most vitamins or hormones, if you take too much of something, you can actually get the same exact symptoms as being low in that thing. So, make sure you're not overdosing right now on B vitamins, meaning like a couple 100 milligrams a day instead of like 50 to 100 milligrams a day of certain B vitamins. Obviously, that's different for folate and B12, methylcobalamin or dinosylcobalamin. But check that out. And then also insulin and blood sugar. All right. So if you're having insulin blood sugar based irregularity, this can actually happen. especially with diabetes. Check that out. You can use that glucometer I mentioned in the last question. And my last piece of advice is also in terms of just overall circulation. I don't think it's this. I'm not leaning that way, of course, but you're not, I'm not talking with you in my practice. Could be low thyroid, right? It could be a circulation-based issue. So that's a possibility. It's a possibility. I'm just not leaning there. I'm leaning in the order that I just gave you right now. Katie, thank you for the question. Thank you everyone for tuning in today to our first Cabral House Call of the weekend. I'll be recording another show today for part 2. So make sure that you tune in tomorrow for part 2 of our Cabral House Call. Really appreciate being able to answer some of these questions for you, hopefully providing a little bit of insight. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you, everyone. I'll talk with you soon. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.